back, guys, to another episode of the Footy GameDay SquadShow. I'm your host, Cal, and joining me, as always, I've got Kerm and Tom, as they were going to dive into the Giants as we continue on our team review series. How you guys going this morning?
Good. The Suns episode is over and done with. I can take a deep breath now and move on with my life.
Yeah, mate, and I'm doing great as well. And it's good to see Kerm up and about again. He's keen on this one, I can see it. So,
yeah, of course. And he's up and about as well because our platform, Game Day Squad, launches next Monday. So it's going to be a revolutionary fantasy sport platform utilising the blockchain technology to bring us what we think is something pretty special and unique, not only to Australia, but potentially even the world. So I'm super excited for that. I'm also pretty excited to get into the Giants today. Had a bit of an interesting year. As you guys know, we've been pumping these out after a bit of a month break. We are now going to go full steam ahead. You guys would see that we've just recently done the Cats and we've done the Suns, as we just mentioned, and we're going to be pumping out the teams we haven't done over the next sort of week or so. So keen to get into the Giants, guys. What do you reckon? Get stuck in?
Let's do it.
Let's get stuck in. And if you guys haven't checked out those other episodes, go check them out. Some great stuff we went through there, helping you get ready for the fantasy season that's coming up.
Yeah. If you're like me, you need that help. So let's get into it. Alrighty, guys, as you would have seen through our last episodes of this, how we go about this series is we start by having a look at how the team went last year. Then we move on to this year and start talking about the fantasy players that we want to actually be bringing into our team for 2022, which of course is just a few weeks away before the season kicks off. And then finally, we look at that sort of dynasty aspect of the team, which of course we love at Game Day Squad. We're all about that. But with the Giants, as you can see there on screen, had a bit of an interesting year. So 111, lost 10, but somehow snuck into the 8th spot. Awesome elimination final against the Swans, and then ultimately
it was not awesome. No, let me
Cats.
jump in there. That was not awesome.
Keeps Tom up at night, that one.
That was hard to watch. Like that last 2-3 minutes. Wow, what a game! Anyway, good. Well done to them.
Yeah, well, I was going to say we will start off by talking about their highlights. So you can either pick for the Giants' perspective, take your Swan Sunnies off here, Tom. Getting a massive win down at the Cattery in round 21 won by about a few goals to secure that spot in the finals after they were sort of, in that hunt for a long time. That was a massive win for them. So I could say that, or potentially even go that elimination final that they did beat the Swans in. Now, Tom, I'm not a Swans fan like you, but my partner, she is a Swans fan, and I was a Swans member this year. So I kind of had a little bit of love for them, and I was, watching that kind of with, half a pair of Swans Sunnies.
Yeah.
From a Swans fan's perspective, that sucked, but a Giants fan, easily the highlight of the year.
Would have been awesome to watch if you're a Giants fan, and it was a very back and forward game as well. Like, you didn't really know who was going to win it until that final siren went off, and it was just tough break for us. I think we had a couple points kicked in the fourth quarter consecutively, and some pretty easy shots as well that, the players who were kicking them probably should have slotted it, but that's all right. No one's perfect.
Save it for your Swannies rant. They're coming up new far away. We'll keep the Giants glasses on. But I wanted to say, do you reckon it's ever been possible to have a low light in the middle of a highlight? And I've got the low light as the 3/4 time, Toby Green bumping the umpire, later got himself 6-week suspension, missed that semi-final that they got beaten in by Geelong. I think that's more of a low light than actually losing in that semi-final. But yeah, soured what was a really, really good day for them. But
yeah.
Again,
We heard about it for about 6 weeks after too, didn't we? Fox Sports News was all over that.
It was quite controversial, if you're being honest. Like, there wasn't a whole lot in it, but at the same time, you cannot touch an umpire. And,
no.
Yeah.
And we'll get onto it a bit later, but I don't know, that they made him captain after it, so maybe at the Giants they value that sort of thing. But let's start talking about some actual players now. For the year that they did have, who do we have as the star of the year? Kerm, I think you're up first. Who do you have?
I am, and I went with the Bull. I went with Tim Taranto, who was locking down a midfield position early on in the year, really spending a lot of time in the guts. But as the season went on, started drifting forward a lot, sort of owning a half-forward role, then coming into the midfield when the likes of Jacob Hopper and Josh Kelly were out. But he had a really good year again, 15 kicks, 11 handballs, 4.9 marks, 5.3 tackles, all elite numbers. The only knock I have on him is his turnovers and clangers. He actually finished second in turnovers per game in 2021, so going into this year, we're going to hope that he cleans that up in the preseason and we can still trust him to use him as much as we do. But yeah, Tim Taranto was my star of the year last year as he's putting up numbers again.
Yeah,
Great
and you're
pick.
right. Because you can see there, he was our number one forward rank player in
He
the
was.
whole game day squad. So yeah, that's a very, very deserving star of the year. And yeah, I'd imagine that legend card that we can see on screen, that's going to be hot property coming
That's
out of
gonna be
packs, very for
tasty.
sure. I'd love to see that when I open my packs on day one, which of course is just next Monday. Tom, who do you have?
Before I get into mine was Josh Kelly. You can see it on the screen right now. I want to give a shout out to Lockie Whitfield. I can see that no one put him down. He's one of the best backmen in the league, and he probably is deserving of a Star of the Year. Hasn't got it with us, though, unfortunately. There are so many great players at GWS. But irrespective, let's get into mine. Josh Kelly, he's like the workhorse of the team. He just gets it done. He ranked 10th in total tackles for the AFL last season. And if you saw in the last couple of months of the year, in the August/September sort of range, he was unbelievable and took his game to another level. He had so many games above 130 to 140 scoring for fantasy production, which no one else is really scoring that in the league. It was just a shame he started off a bit slow. Otherwise, his average could have been a bit better for the entire season. So he's my star of the year. He's the workhorse of the team. I think people really appreciate what he does on the field.
He is so effortless and classy too. He's so fun to watch. I love watching Josh Kelly.
Yeah, and you're too right. That class got shown in those couple of finals games as well. When they needed to win, yeah, he was their guy. And you're right, Tom. I did not go Lockie Whitfield, but I tell you, I had him very close there. But I went a bit of a zag. I went Isaac Cumming. Now, the numbers wise, you look, he wasn't a sort of standout. But the reason that I loved him was a couple of reasons. He's only played 34 games of the comp. He's already averaging over 100, which is big from him. But for those who are playing AFL Fantasy or Supercoach last season, they would know that this guy actually appreciated and valued more than any other player. So obviously that's important for those other platforms, and me being a fantasy lover, I was playing on those other platforms, and having this guy in make me a ton of money to free up later on was massive. So that's why I gave him the star of the year. Yeah, putting on my other fantasy hat. What about the other side though? Let's talk about someone who had as a flop or a disappointment of the year.
Yeah, this sucks. Because Stephen Caniglio is one of my favourite players to watch, or at least he was. And he was a person in 2018, averaged 28 disposals, 2019, 26.6 disposals, 2017, 25 disposals. He's always been an elite ball winner. But last year he just completely fell off a perch. And he only played 7 games, but those 7 games were frankly absolutely terrible. He only averaged 14 disposals in those games. And there was a lot of off-field talk about his captaincy and his leadership presence in the team. And we'll see how that gets to him this off-season. All reports say that he's had a very good off-season. He's looking as fit as he ever has. So yeah, we'll see how he goes this season. But for last year, highly disappointing from one of the best players in the league to watch.
Yeah, and I want... on mute. I want to jump in because I had him as well, Kerm, and like I've got it here. It pains me to say it because I really do like him.
Yeah.
And that grand final season where he was averaging 130, he was an absolute beast.
He can be so electric.
Yeah,
it's such a shame to see the way he played last year.
And it must be so tough. Like you said, he couldn't get on the park, but he was healthy. He only got those 7 games in, and then when he played, he wasn't playing very well. And yeah, they've kept him as a captain. I feel like they should have just taken that off him and just said, "Hey mate, work on your footy." Because I hate having more than one captain. The idea of that in the AFL in any sport rubs me up the wrong way. But yeah, I think sort of taking it off him. But yeah, Tom, who do you have? Do you have someone different?
I did. I had Shane Mumford, the ruckman, for the season, and you really felt like that if he had a better year, it could have made it a lot easier for the midfielders inside for GWS. As we mentioned before, they were just a bit underdone at the end of the season. And you just know what Mummy brings to the field. His intensity. He's just a workhorse of a player again as a ruckman. He tackles really hard. He puts on big hits. He does things that not a lot of other ruckmen do. For me, though, it was just a season too long. It's his second retirement now. He has left. They needed him to come back, so credit to him for coming back. He's now the ruckman coach for the team, which is going to be huge for the younger ruckmen that are coming through and developing, because what a player to learn off. But, in terms of fantasy production, it was one of his lowest years. It just wasn't very impressive for Mummy. And also his ability to stay on the field. He wasn't able to play the full season for them. He played something like 10 to 9 games. They probably needed a little bit more out of his final year, but hopefully he can now enjoy retirement and help out the club in another way, which would be huge.
Yeah, and I think the reason that he was the spotlight was on him because they brought in Braden, and I know you had troubles pronouncing last names, Tom, last week with Lukosius, but I don't know how to pronounce him.
Braden Preuss.
Yeah, there you go, that guy. Sorry, again, just like Lukosius, if you're watching, sorry, mate. They brought him in to play. He didn't play. Spotlight was on him. He had to deliver, and yeah, it's tough. But now, I hope he enjoys retirement because I'm sure people will like not going up against him because, man, when he tackled, I saw him. I was at the game where, it was like pretty close to where he absolutely killed someone right on the boundary line and like took the life of this guy, and I felt it. Scary. Wouldn't want to play against him.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more. And you're so right. Like, what other ruckmen are doing that in the league? Who's throwing their body on the line and just murdering people in the field? That's Mummy's. It's his specialty. It's what he does.
I got too excited, guys. I ended the recording and we were still going. We haven't got around to our grading for the year. That's on me. So I'll start. I give them a B- for the year.
Fair.
They were a really hard one to grade because they lost their first few games and then they kind of got thrown into this scrap of, hey, we've got to make the finals. And they're predicted to be around that sort of semi-final sort of finish at the start of the year. So it's about on par, but yeah, really impressive how they managed to recover and, get back into it. Really impressive how they were able to beat the Swans, who the Swans are a good team. But yeah, ultimately, I think we'll get into this a bit after missing their premiership window potentially. I was expecting a little bit more, and yeah, B- for me. How'd you guys see it?
I was a little bit more lenient, and I really liked the bounce back that they had that you spoke about. I thought they turned it around really good. And with all the off-field stuff like the Toby Green issues, the Stephen Coniglio issues, absolute stars of the club, so it was all over the papers everywhere. I ended up giving them a B+ because I respected the turnaround, but I can see where you guys are coming from because I think yours is similar to Cal's, Tom?
Yeah, so I've gone with a B- as well, and I love how you brought that all up. There are a lot of factors that weren't in their control towards the end of the season, losing players to injury, losing players to suspension. It really would have been great to see a full-strength team out there and see what they could have done. Maybe that would have given them the extra lift, but for the season, they did great. They made the finals. I've given them a B-.
And you might have given them a little bit of higher score hadn't they not knocked off your beloved Swans.
That thing. It's a little bit personal now.
Yeah. It was personal for you last episode with the Suns. But as you can see there, that has them as the fourth highest team so far. Geelong, which we did a couple episodes ago, on top. Lions, Essendon, and then the Giants slot in there. So, yeah, let's see how they're going to go in 2022. Alrighty guys, so as you can see there on the chart, I think this is maybe the nicest one I've created so far because it's probably the easiest to read with what's going on. And that story is the Giants are coming down the mountain and they are not doing it. I just don't see them going back up and sort of competing for that premiership window we all thought they were going to be in for a while. I actually have them at 12th this year. I think they're going to drop off in a big way. I know the bookies have them at 8th this year. I can see them making the finals. I see a scenario where they do scrape in again, but I honestly think they're going to be closer to their floor than their ceiling this year. I just don't trust a few of the things. There's some really nice players in there, but as a squad, I just don't know. I'm not sold on it. How do you see their year playing out?
I agree, and for me, it's the forward line that is the biggest concern for me. I'm not sure, like we spoke about the Suns in our previous episode, I'm not sure where they're going to find that 50-goal player. I don't think it's going to be Toby Green. It very well could be, and we know a lot of players are getting forward from the midfield. I'm sure Josh Kelly is going to be spending time there. Coniglio could be spending time there, and Tim Taranto, as we saw at the end of last year, will be spending time there. So they're going to be sharing the ball a lot around some very talented players up forward, but as for those consistent goal kickers, I'm just not sure who it's going to be.
Fair enough, and for me, I somewhat agree with the decline in performance over the next couple of years, but this season will be a huge in telling the story and unraveling how they're going to be in the next couple of years. If they can work it out this year and still make the finals and push, then I think that they can get another signing or two, maybe a forward, as you mentioned, Kerm, to come in and be that player, and for the 23 season potentially. But for now, it's quite fair, and this year's huge. I really looked at this team and was like, this will be a huge year in deciding where they go for the next couple.
Yeah, that's a great point, because you're right. bad year and it's like they start following the sort of Gold Coast path, sorry, Kerm, or is it win and they're back up again? But
exactly right.
Imagine going after King at the end of the year. Wouldn't he be nice in the forward line?
This was last episode. I'm trying to move forward.
Sorry, we'll let you move on with your life. Who have you got in your squad? So again, how we break this up? Who's in your best 22? Who are players you have thereabouts knocking on the door? Might be in your sort of active squad for Game Day Squad, and who are players you've already got the line through and you're avoiding?
Yeah, so I'll kick us off here. And in my best 22, it was a toss-up between your star of the year, Cal, Isaac Cumming, and Lockie Whitfield for me. And I went for Lockie Whitfield just because I think he's got that higher ceiling, that player who can hit those 150s at any given point. And in Game Day Squad, we've got him down as a defender. But if you look at his heat maps, he's all over the park. He can go wherever he wants. He's got the keys to push up forward, up a wing, go through the guts. He's got one of the best kicks in the league. So Lockie Whitfield for me is going to be in my best 22. Knocking on the door is going to be Toby Green. I'm excited to see if he can bounce back in a big way this year and start kicking some bags again. And there's every chance he can spend some time in the midfield too, as we saw early on in his career, and he can find some footy. Tim Taranto, he probably should be in most people's best 22. I've got him knocking on the door. I'm very interested in the likes of some others that we can talk about in future episodes. But Tim Taranto, his biggest concern for me is his ball usage and how much Leon Cameron's going to be able to take of that going forward. So I'm going to be looking at him in the preseason and early on. I'm sure if he's playing well, he's going to be in my best 22 at some point. And avoiding, it's going to be Ward purely because of age, and I can't see him being his former self. Coming from the Bulldogs, he was one of the stars of the league and was such a good performer for GWS early on in their establishment. But he's not performed. He's getting older now. He's starting to pick up these niggly injuries. He's just not the same Ward that we've seen. And Caniglio, I'm avoiding early on in the season just because there's so many question marks around where he's going to be playing, what role he's going to have, and whether we're going to see the best of him again. So unfortunately avoiding Caniglio, but he's still going to be one to watch going forward later on in the year.
Wow. No Taranto in your forward line.
No Taranto in the best 22.
Jeez.
And I'll tell you what, I've done the exact same thing. If you flick over, you'll see my best 22 here. It's Lockie Whitfield. And I love all the points you made about Lockie Whitfield. And an area that I've identified for him to even increase and take his game to the next level in terms of fantasy production is tackles per game. If he can get more involved and get some more tackles, we could see that number skyrocket again because he has been given the keys by the team. He has the full trust of his teammates, the coach, everyone to do whatever he wants in the field because he is such a good anticipation for the game. Knocking on my door is Toby Green. And, we've spoken about goal kickers in our platform and how they've got a little bit of buffer in fantasy points. And, we mentioned how this is whole and there's going to be... Someone's going to need to step up and kick some more goals for the team. And Toby Green could be that guy. We've mentioned that they've named him as captain. He's going to be a leader, so... He's someone I'm going to be keeping an eye on, but I won't have in my best 22 to start. And avoiding, like you, Kerm, is Ward. I think we've seen the best of his career. I don't see him getting better in terms of fantasy production. His importance for the team will still be just as important. He's a veteran. He's going to be able to guide and lead some of these younger players in the squad. But in terms of fantasy, that doesn't help you out being a great role model and being a great leader. So I'm going to avoid him this year.
Fair points.
I still can't believe you guys didn't go Torino. I can go through mine in the list, but I just want to talk about that. My note I have here, he's a slam dunk for any team seriously going for a premiership this year. So you guys, I guess, aren't serious with that. And I've also got, guys, he's 24. He hasn't even played 100 games yet. It's frightening. You guys don't have him in the team.
It's just the clangers for me. The clangers and the turnovers. And at some point, that's like, how can you trust someone to get the ball? He was second in turnovers last year. For a team on the decline, he's going to be, like, if full transparency, he's probably going to make my best 22 at some point. He'll go 3 rounds early on in the season, averaging 33 touches a game, and I'm going to go, oh, Jesus Christ, I've got to get this guy in my team somehow. But I just want to see early on progression from him, cleaning up his usage from the ball with handballs and kicking, and then he'll get into my team.
Well, if you guys pack your Tyrannos early, send them my way because I will take them. I think it'll be one of the most
good trade packages.
I think he is going to be one of the most sought after players just because he is classified as a forward and we don't have dual position in Game Day Squad. So having that sort of premium spot where he can run through the middle and score almost midfield points. There's a massive gap. It was like him 1, I forget who was 2, but there was a massive drop off to 3 or 4. I think it was in the last episode we said. Name's eluding me. Cats, Higgins, or yeah. Anyway, go back and watch it if you're keen to see. But massive drop off. So I think you guys are going to miss out there. I won't go long through mine. Whitfield, star, love him. Toby Green, he's going to miss the first few weeks, obviously, with that suspension, but he's a gun forward. You'd be having him in your line because he runs through the middle as well. Cumming, want to see how he goes. I've got him in there. I reckon he's the sort of player where it's kind of on the fence. We'll see how he goes. And then Cornelio, the same with you, Kerm. Like, I do really like him, but a good year for him isn't scoring 130 points. A good year for him is just being in the team consistently. And whether that's scoring 80 and stuff. So like that's the level he's going for now at the moment, which is disappointing there. But yeah, that's 2022 for them.
Alrighty, so Cal, I got a quick question for you, mate. The Giants just controversially named Toby Green as a co-captain of GWS, and that got me thinking about my own GDS captain. What role does a captain play in Game Day Squad fantasy football?
Yeah, this is an easy one. Normally you throw a bit of harder curveballs at me, but that's an easy one. If you've played your AFL fantasy before, you've played AFL Supercoach, it's no different to that. So our captain gets double points basically each week. You can select one. It could be anyone in your starting team. You've also got a vice captain, so for whatever reason your captain doesn't play, vice captain will step up and take that spot there. So what we do have though is unique as our multipliers. So we will get onto that, and as you'll be seeing throughout the slides, the different cards and the different tiers. Now, important to remember, every player has every tier of card. But when we're talking about that legend card, if you have that 1 of 1 card, and let's say Taranto, and I've just been massive on him before, if he's a 1.5 multiplier, as a captain, that is now like 3 times multiplier. So it's effectively like you're having 3 Tyrannos run out into your team. So we add a little bit of extra dynamic. Do you go for the best player in your team, or do you go for a player with a high multiplier? So a little bit more strategy in there, but it makes a gun legend card even more valuable, and why they're so highly sought after.
I love it. Great analysis. Get the general manager caps on. Choose your captain wisely going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of captains, did anyone have Toby Green as their future star, or has he? I know people still think that he's going to be a gun. What did you go with, Kerm? Did you go with Toby Green?
No, I went with another Green. There's too many Greens going around. I went with too many Greens. I went with 21-year-old Tom Green, who's going into going into his 3rd season. He's going into his 1st season, but last year he had 20 disposals per game, 7 kicks, 12 handballs. But in 2021 in the Rising Stars, he finished 2nd in total clearances, 1st in handballs per game, 1st in contested possessions per game. So he's one of the best young players coming through. Will he get the trust? Will he get the time in the midfield with so many good midfield options at GWS? TBD. But he's definitely one to watch going forward and could be a future star for me.
Yeah, I like that. The better Green, both on the field
better Green.
And probably in the locker room of the league. Where'd you go, Tom?
Okay, so you guys know that I picked Shane Mumford as my disappointment of the year, and he wasn't that disappointing. It was just time. So it was time to retire. My star here is Kieran Briggs, and the reason is that he's the backup ruckman for the team, and he started getting some hitouts towards the later end of last year. He's only played 5 games. He's very young, as you can see there, 22 years old. But he is a physical specimen. If you look at him walk on the field, he is a big guy, and he's the sort of guy you think that you could plug him into the ruck and he could do a really great job for the team. Plus, he's going to be able to work with Shane Mumford as the ruckman coach this year, which what a great role model to have and to aspire to be like. So Shane Mumford's still going to be, imprinting his impact on the game, but in a different way through Kieran Briggs. So I'm excited to see what he can do. And if he can secure that starting ruckman spot, who knows what his ceiling will be.
Yeah, Briggs is so exciting. 17 hitouts a game, 4 tackles, almost 10 disposals a game. That's what you're looking for at someone who's 22 years old.
Yeah, I've got him coming up, so I'll save my stuff for that. But yeah, if he can jump over Braden Crucis, again, I'll get it right by the end of the season, mate. If he can jump over him somehow, then yeah, no, absolutely, that's a steal. I really like that pick. I did go with Lockie Ash though. So
love this.
Yeah, 4th pick in 2019 draft. 12 games in like a couple of years, last year or 2 years ago at 51, and then this year 23 at 83. So he's growing. Stat for you. Only Jack Lukosius as a defender is younger than him and gets more points than him. So he's right up there with the premium young defenders in the competition. I think with the way this team is trending, we know that teams that get more ball down back, the defenders score higher. So if they do fall off the cliff, like I might predict going forward, and I have for this season, he's got a pretty good runway there. So yeah, and he's so quick. He is so quick off that half-back play. Yeah, I know I've been trying to recruit everyone to Port. It's the sort of thing that we used to love playing, just that sort of our rapid half-back line. I love it. Get him in there. Why not?
How old's Hamish Hart look?
Yeah, he's gone. So
I don't think Port Adelaide has enough roster spots for all the players you want to bring in, mate.
Don't worry, we have their podcast coming up in 4 more shows, so I'll be clearing a few spots. Don't worry. All right, upside potential players. So these aren't the players we think are going to be a nailed-on star, but someone that we actually think has a potential to be, but also a bit more high variance. And I want to jump in straight in here because I had Briggs, and his average that you were talking about before, he's already everyone talks about everyone talks about Chol. That's obviously going up to Gold Coast, and everyone talks about Draper at Essendon doing everything. He's averaging more points than him. And then no ruckman younger than him is averaging more points than him as well. So again, great young player, and does make me I am saying all these great young players. I know I might zag here in a second when we talk about their dynasty potential, but there are a few players to get me excited. Who'd you guys go with for that?
Kerm, kick off, mate, because I can see here you've actually gone the same pick. Is that right?
Oh, yeah, you went Briggs as well.
Briggs.
I went with Briggs as well. I love him, and for me, it's just about opportunity. Otherwise, he would have been my future star. If he can jump Bruce, as we've spoken about, he's already a massive asset to have in fantasy. So if you can get him early and stash him into your active team or your squad that you won't be using in your active 22, that's a massive fantasy asset to have going forward, because I think he could be one of the best ruckmen in 5 years' time, one of the best ruckmen going around.
Which, of course, is one of the great things we can do with fantasy in our platform. It's very similar to FIFA. You don't have to have him in your active squad. He doesn't need to be taking up space in your team.
Exactly.
Go after him, store him, train him up, and then when he's good to go, nurture him. Yeah, looking for the right words. Throw him into your squad. He's going to be a gun and win you a premiership later on. But who'd you go with, Tom, if you've zagged?
I've got someone that has some sort of a relationship with Kieran Briggs, and it's Peatling. And the relationship is they're both Sydney products. Both Sydney players have come out through the Sydney AFL. Peatling is not quite Briggs. He's not the physical specimen. He doesn't have all the measurables. When you look at him, he's not too impressive. But what he does have is blitzing speed and quick decision making. And there's sort of a spot here for the wing. I'm looking at sort of the roster, and we've talked about Whitfield, but he plays off the half-back a lot, given the keys. There's an opportunity for him to come in here and be a starting winger of the team. And if you're going to be a starting winger of the team, and we're going to see the evolution of Briggs, we're going to see all of their midfielders come back in. And if they're going to have this one last shot at trying to, keeping this sort of dynasty, if you want to say, together, and keeping their champion or their premiership hopes alive, Peatling could really come in and do a job, and I'm seeing that as similar to you guys with Briggs. Stash him away, nurture him a little bit, look after him, and see where he ends up, because he could be a great player for fantasy.
I love you have to stop yourself from saying championship again. You said playoffs in the last one. You said champion here. The NFL season is over, mate. AFL. No, that's good. I like that, and which does make it very hard for me to go into this final slide, which is me looking at where I think their dynasty potential is going forward for the next sort of 3 to 5 years, and I have them in tier 4, guys. I think they've missed the boat. They've got some really good players. I kind of feel like they're in this position where they've got good enough players that they won't completely bottom out and get the high draft picks, but they'll sort of stay in this no man's land, potentially, push back up to 8th and stuff, but I don't think they'll be seriously back up there for the premiership. So not sure it's going to be a place where free agents are going to want to go. Obviously, they've signed a lot of their sort of, people like Whitfield on these long deals, Kelly on these long deals. So it's like, who are they going to get in if they had the cap room? I just don't see it, which is a shame, because I really did want them to succeed. Being an AFL fan, you would like to see Greater Western Sydney and Gold Coast and these expansion clubs have success and grow the game. But yeah, unfortunately, I just don't see it. What about you guys?
I love how you mentioned draft picks, because listen to this, and some of these names blow my mind, but Jack Steele, Zach Williams, Adam Treloar, Dylan Shield, Devon Smith, Taylor Adams, all drafted by GWS, all gone. All gone to Melbourne clubs.
Steele is probably the biggest name there that I look at and I'm like, that is a huge missed opportunity. And where would this team be with a player like that in the starting 22 with all of the other talent? Exactly right.
Did you say Jeremy Cameron in there as well?
Jeremy Cameron. So
Yeah,
how could I forget Jeremy Cameron? So it's like great drafting team. Embarrassing the Suns really, because we don't need to speak about the Suns anymore, but they drafted so well. They just haven't been able to keep those big names that they've developed. And will we see that going forward as well? Will these Peatlings, will these Briggs, will they leave? We don't know. History says yes, but because of that reason, I agree tier 4 seems to be where they're going.
And for that, I'm going to disagree. I think tier 3. But this, again, as I mentioned before, this is the year that's going to tell the future. And this is the year that's really going to sort of solidify what sort of tier they're going to be in. And I can see it going either way. I can see them having some success, getting, a free agent over and really changing the team and then being top 4 contenders again. Or I can see them not making the finals this year, bottoming out and going through that rebuild 2.0, So, yeah.
Yeah, we will stay tuned and see. But like we say, regardless how the team goes, they've got some very, very fantasy relevant players that we have gone through. And of course, there might be some that we've missed. If you are a GWS fan or just a great AFL fantasy player, let us know in the comments. Who are you actually going after, potential players we've missed? Because we want to get better like you guys in the preparation. There we go, I'll spit the words out. For our launch in a week's time on the Game Day Squad platform. So we're super excited. Before we jump off, Tom, you got a few things we need?
I definitely do, guys. We've got heaps more content coming out, so check us out. Leave a like on this video, subscribe, and push the post notifications on so you get a notification for when we are releasing this content. We'll leave all of our socials down in the description, so check us out. Other than that, we'll see you in the next video very soon.
Yeah, we're not perfect, we're getting better, but we appreciate everyone that's giving us support. So yeah. Thanks also for those listening on podcast. Do leave those reviews. And who we got next, guys? Who's coming up next on the review train? The Hawks.
Hawthorn?
There we go. Very forgettable year, and I'm sure we'll tell you why soon. So cheers, guys. See you next time.